Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Andrea Wickerly, and welcome to the Ready Living podcast, where each episode is designed to educate, inspire, and empower you to create the life you want. Thanks for joining us, and remember to subscribe for free on your favorite platform. My guest today is Christopher Hill, founder of luxury philanthropic travel brands Hands Up Holidays and Impact Destinations. Early in his career, he worked as a London investment banker, but it was a home building project in South Africa that changed his worldview and the trajectory of his life. He lives in New Zealand with his wife, 2 sons, and their family dog, Zola. Welcome, Christopher.
Thanks, Andrea. It's great to be here.
You studied law and business at university and then worked in investment banking for 6 years, but then you went on vacation in South Africa and everything changed. Tell us about that.
On that trip in South Africa, in addition to going on safari and staying in beautiful lodges and exploring the wonders of Cape Town and the winelands and garden route and so on, I also helped to build a house for a family in one of the townships, Shantytown area. This was just outside of Cape Town. In contrast to all the travel I'd done, which was a reasonable amount up to that point, I had arranged with my employer to travel straight after university for 9 months before starting work for them. I've traveled through Australia, Africa, Europe, and a bit of the US on that trip. In contrast to that, even though that was all amazing and I got so many great memories, what it lacked was engagement with the local people and actually being able to share stories and gain insights into their lives. Whilst on this house building project, I got to do that and really get to know the family that we were building alongside. And it just felt great to make a difference and give them a decent place to live. These two things, I thought, I have learned some good business skills. Why don't I put it into something that I would find a bit more meaningful and fulfilling and enable others to have the same experience that I've had? And so, that was the catalyst for me. It was certainly still a leap to go from investment banking into entrepreneurship and running a social enterprise. Although I think there's also some sort of innate qualities in me as well around just being able to understand what our clients are looking for and want to get out of their trip and helping them uncover that purpose.
What did your family and colleagues say when you told them you were leaving investment banking to do this? I imagine they were pretty surprised.
Yeah, definitely surprised, but definitely also supportive, especially family. And some of my colleagues were investors.
Oh, fantastic. I want to go back to the first time you were in South Africa.
It felt great to actually make that difference, as I mentioned. And that was a great driver. And hand in hand with this sense of, yes, I've been blessed with so much, and create a stronger sense of equity with people that haven't been dealt such a fortunate hand in life.
In a Facebook post, you wrote that luxury travel becomes so much more meaningful when you add in a charitable component. And someone once described the difference between a tourist and a traveler as a traveler trying to connect more deeply with local people and the environment they're in. Is part of your goal to help guests step outside their usual bubble of comfort and perspective?
Basically, our entire goal is that. We still include that comfort element, but the driver is so that people can have experiences like I had on that first trip in South Africa, where you do get out of that bubble and have your perspective, have your worldview really completely altered. That's our mission, the reason we exist, really.
How do you determine which local needs to support and which projects are most appropriate for guests to contribute to? I imagine you put a lot of effort into creating just the right experience with that, both for the people on the ground and the guests that are traveling to those locations.
Absolutely, Andrea. Straight after that South Africa experience, I took a year out and did some study. And then after that year, I spent the next 2 years traveling the world, building relationships with different travel partners and with communities. Even right back then, this is 2004 and 2005, so over 20 years ago now, the approach, which continues through today, has been to never go in with an agenda. It's always been to have an open mind and ask questions around, firstly, would you like help from outside? And if the answer to that is yes, then to ask, what would that help look like? Never to tell people what we think or what I think should be done. Once we get that information, then it's really up to us to market it and see if there is appeal. And some things can be quite niche. Even those, if we get just a few people going, can still be a benefit.
I imagine that some people may bristle at the idea of mixing luxury with volunteering, seeing it as a contradiction. How do you respond to those critics?
I can see that perspective, absolutely. But what we developed was what I would call philanthro volunteering model. What I mean by that is that it's the funds that our clients bring, which is the big impact to a community. The benefits that our clients get is that interaction and engagement. There's no reason that luxury can't go hand in hand with volunteering, because the luxury part is really the accommodation at the end of the day. And so we've focused on that in order to make the volunteering accessible for those people who don't want to have to rough it, and for those people who have the means to really be effective in that philanthro volunteering model. And for those people that want to help but aren't interested or can't afford the luxury component, there's lots of organizations that can cater for that.
So it sounds like your main clientele is people who want that luxury experience because they have maybe limited time, but who also want to leave a positive impact.
Absolutely, Andrea. Yep, you've nailed it.
I'm dying to know what kind of projects your clients can engage in during these vacations and what kinds of places they can visit.
In terms of categories of ways that people can help, the main ones are building. Nestled within that is repairs and renovations, and that can range from sort of smaller scale projects such as eco-friendly stoves that can be installed in the homes of villagers. And these stoves are fantastic. They're fully contained, and so they replace the open flames used in traditional cooking. Those flames, especially with young kids running around, can result in burns, and so by making them enclosed, dramatically reduce the incidence of burns. They also have a chimney. The incidence of respiratory problems such as asthma are dramatically reduced. And then thirdly, they're much more fuel efficient. So from an environmental perspective, they're a win as well. So these can be completed in even just a couple of days. That building category can range from that through to helping to build a classroom or a home for a family. With those ones, typically this is really where the philanthro volunteering model kicks in that the funds are used to employ local people and they're used to pay for the materials that are needed. Typically on those bigger projects, a significant amount of the work is done for the clients arrive and the clients get to apply the finishing touches, still supervised by the local experts. So that's one category. And then wildlife conservation, typically quite hands-on, but not contacting the animals for the animals' welfare. This can be things like, for example, helping at a elephant conservation center in Thailand or India or Sri Lanka. And that involves preparing the meals for the elephants and then really getting to experience and understand the life of an elephant that's sort of reintegrating and becoming more what a wild elephant would be like. So just observing them, walking with them and watching them bathe and socialize together and really just learning a lot about the elephants. And then thirdly, the most popular category would be being a reading partner / teaching in a school education context. Those we offer in India, Laos, South Africa, Peru, and Belize. We also do have sort of a more generalist category called sort of community upliftment. Things like creating solar heating panels for families using recycled cans and bottles. We offer that in Argentina. Really fantastic project. And then a final category would be if you have specifically medical skills, being a nurse or a doctor. There are some destinations where we can really utilize those skills. One that springs to mind is in Zambia, a medical clinic that we partner with.
In one of the blog posts on your website, you talk about what it is to use your services as a family. You mentioned something in there that I thought was really interesting, namely that some parents struggle to instill values like gratitude or humility and empathy in their children, and that the trips you offer can help them transform. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
I'll take a little step back, first of all, to say when I first launched Hands Up Holidays back in 2006, I had people like myself in mind, so young professionals, cash rich, time poor, who wanted to have an amazing vacation, but also wanted to make a difference. Whilst we did get bookings with them, actually, we got more bookings right from the beginning from families. Families weren't on my radar at all when I was setting it up. It just didn't even occur to me. So I would ask our clients, what motivated you to book with us? And they'd say things like, our kids come from pretty privileged backgrounds and we want them to appreciate how fortunate they are. Or they'd say, we're looking for a great family bonding experience and this really nails it for us. And that resonated with me, and it resonates even more so now that I do have children of my own. Those things you mentioned around gratitude and empathy, but they're best developed in practice. It's harder to teach it in theory, but when you're actually on the ground, so to speak, in a destination where you are getting to engage with people who have nothing but are happy, that's a very humbling experience. And speaking personally, it's helped with being just grateful for what I have and being content rather than striving for the next gadget or whatever the case may be. In that context of empathy, those skills, those soft skills, so to speak, are developed. It's really why we have decided to focus primarily on that family market due to the transformation that can happen in children.
Hands Up Holidays was a 2024 finalist in Luxury Travel Magazine's awards for Best Family Travel Experience. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
For families considering booking a luxury volunteering experience, what are some of the options families have, and what are some of the top suggestions for planning and preparing children?
The typical process that our clients go through is they come to our site and then they'll complete our Plan My Trip form. And that form is a bit of a deep dive into what they want to get out of the trip. And then because I have taken it on to look after all of our clients, I will get that information and do my own deep dive with the clients.
Sounds almost like a concierge service to a certain degree, right? You really give it a very hands-on personal approach.
Oh, 100%, Andrea. Yeah, it's 100% personalized. We do have suggested itineraries on our website, but they're purely suggestion. And so in the context of families, the significant thing is the age of the children. We can work with families with children of all ages. If they're really young, we can arrange for nannies or daycare services for them. If they're a bit older, then play with children of their own age. But in terms of getting children involved, most of our wildlife projects, that can happen from about the age of around 5 and carry right through to adulthood. I love to encourage, where possible, families to get involved in those projects where they're community focused. You do get that interaction. And that we tend to recommend from early teenage years. But as I say, that's just all part of the concierge process, identifying what would be a good fit based on the ages of the children.
You yourself have 2 children. Can you tell us about one or two of the most meaningful experiences you've had as a family?
My all-time favorite would be a trip we took to Bali recently, Bali, Indonesia. Bali is a beautiful, popular island. It's a Hindu island. Because of that, people that are born with a disability can be considered as bad karma. Depending on that level of disability, they can be cloistered away, hidden away from the rest of society and lead very lonely, isolated lives. We were privileged to be able to fund and participate in creating a disabled accessible bathroom for a paraplegic. It's unique for us as an organization because the benefit really accrues to one person, the paraplegic person. But the impact on them in terms of their dignity and sense of independence in this area that's so personal is really profound. So it's great to be able to do it with my children and see them get involved with drawing the water from the well. Then they'd transport over to where the cement was being mixed, and then they would help mix that cement and then spade it into a wheelbarrow and carry it over to where the experts were doing the tricky parts, and then also painted the house for the family. The leisure part of that trip was we did things like whitewater rafting and mountain biking and hiking to waterfalls and beautiful rice paddies and some snorkeling. In January of this year, we went to Baja, California in Mexico, in addition to seeing just incredible marine life from dolphins to whales to whale sharks and seals. We also participated in a turtle conservation project there at the beach. every half hour, we had to set the timer and check the turtle nests for any turtles that had hatched during that space of time, and then collect them and then put them in a tank and keep them watered. In the evening, we got to help with the release of those turtles into the ocean.
How does your model of travel avoid the pitfalls of over tourism?
Two aspects to that. One would be we're a small organization, and so the volume that we do is minuscule in compared to mainstream operators and so on. I think more significantly, really by emphasizing other areas and spending more time in those areas. For instance, it might be a trip to Peru, for example. One example of over-tourism is the Inca Trail in Machu Picchu. And the client still may go there, but they also may, by virtue of including this volunteering component, are also spending 3 to 5 days in a community in the Sacred Valley, which no one goes to. And so they are devoting time to areas that actually do need tourism and the benefits that tourism brings around employment and spending in that local area.
And if someone wants to get the most out of a volunteer vacation, what are some voluntourism best practices travelers should keep in mind prior to embarking on such an adventure?
To get the most out of it, it's important to identify the way that you can best help. There are, to my mind, sort of 3 ways to do this. One, you can help with your time. People who have significant amounts of time to devote to a project, i.e. can take weeks and even months on a particular project, then that can be of huge benefit. And then secondly, it can be using your skills, medical skills, physiotherapy skills, or web developing coding skills, or accounting skills, bookkeeping, marketing skills, and that philanthropy volunteering model that I mentioned, where it's your funds that can make the difference. Then do an assessment of, do you want this to be your sole focus, i.e. do you want to purely volunteer, or do you want to include some leisure aspects to that as well?
When it comes to logistics, can people plan a volunteer trip like this on their own?
I guess technically, yes. There's just some risks around what's involved and who's there to assist you, and logistics on the ground and the vetting. And those risks can be that your expectations actually aren't met, or that your skills aren't the right match for what they need. Working with a company like ours can take those risks away and actually ensure that there is the right fit for you.
How large is the global volunteer travel market compared to tourism overall? And do you see voluntourism eventually moving beyond a niche?
It's around 1 to 2% of the overall travel market. The spend at the moment is around $900 million, which sounds a lot, but as I say, it's only a couple of percent of the overall spend. It's forecast to grow to about 1.6 billion, so it'd grow by about 60% in the next 10 years. And yes, it would eventually become more mainstream, and I would love to see that. Our own philosophy is that, yes, the volunteering component is important, but we take a holistic approach to someone's vacation or trip, in that it's not just the volunteering component that we want to be positive. We also focus on, for instance, eco-luxury properties, but they do take sustainability seriously in their design, in their construction, in their daily practices. And we also recommend restaurants that source their food locally and use organic produce. Part of our ethos as well is to hire local guides. That's not only good for the local economy, but we believe it's really good for our clients as well, because they get that sort of insider knowledge that only a local can bring. Sustainable travel is also growing, and I think for travel to survive in the long term, it has to go this way. And so the more it becomes mainstream, sustainable travel combined with giving back is very powerful.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And so I had mentioned early on that you have 2 offerings. One is Hands Up Holidays, and the other is Impact Destinations.
Hands Up Holidays is really what I've been talking about so far, in terms of combination of a vacation with a hands-on volunteering experience. In contrast to that, Impact Destinations is using philanthropy to enable the experts to do what they do best, and at the same time unlock a unique experience for the traveller. A couple of examples. One is coming back to South Africa. On a safari day there, guests can fund and get to participate in a rhino relocation to a reserve in Botswana that's much better protected. And so this is where guests actually go into the helicopter with the veterinarian while he is preparing to dart the rhino, and then once he has darted the rhino, then to land and spend some time with the sedated rhino before seeing it loaded onto the container and airlifted off to Botswana. Or another example is in Indonesia, where orangutans are facing habitat loss due to palm oil production. Guests can fund the rescue of an orangutan family from an area that's facing that habitat loss and funding their release into a protected reserve. And then in return for that, guests can actually go out with expert guides into exclusive tracts of jungle and go with these guides to see orangutans in the wild. It's using philanthropy to make a difference and then unlocking a unique experience for the guest.
That sounds absolutely amazing. And looking ahead, what excites you the most about the future of luxury voluntourism, and where do you hope to take Hands Up Holidays and impact destinations next?
I think what excites me the most is that trend of growth that we just spoke about, and the increasing awareness that it is possible to travel in luxury and also to make a difference and give back, and for families to really engage in that as well. And in terms of Hands Up Holidays and impact destinations, for me, it's incremental, slow and steady growth, really, in terms of rolling out new destinations. So, for instance, with Hands Up Holidays, we are about to launch Roatan in Honduras there with a project around helping at an after schools program, and then combining that with exploring the island and enjoying the amazing snorkeling and diving that there is there. And then for impact destinations, growing that as well with things like French Polynesia, where guests can go in return for donation to coral reef restoration, be taken to exclusive areas where the reef restoration is happening. Also, some offerings here in New Zealand, quite niche, rugby and America's Cup sailing. The opportunity for guests to make a donation to this former All Blacks Mental Health Foundation, and then in return for that, to meet with him, have a meal with this former All Black rugby player in the sailing context in return for making a donation to America's Cup Sailors Foundation he is part of, going out sailing with America's Cup Sailor. So these are some of the exciting things that we're unrolling.
So, where can people find you online to learn more about all of this?
I would say our websites are the best spots. One is Hands Up Holidays, so that's handsUpHolidays.com, and the other is Impact Destinations, so that's impactdestinations.com.
Christopher, thank you so much for having taken the time today.
It's been an honor and a privilege, Andrea. Thank you so much for having me.